I watch videos of people on YouTube getting emotional and I'm like, come on. Hey folks, it's Carrie from Pretty Neat. Thanks for joining me. So today I want to get a little personal and tell you my story of coming to value minimalism in my life and why that has become so important and why I've been inspired to make this my job and to help other people see the value in paring things down and figuring out what's really most important as far as their stuff is concerned. I started out the decade of my 20s in a very privileged way. I graduated from a graduate program, I got a job, I married this great guy, and we bought this big house in the suburbs that we could just about barely afford. And, you know, by all definitions, I was well on my way to realizing the American dream, whatever that means. Then something really major happened in my life. My father was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he underwent a couple years. He had surgery and chemo and radiation and all of that. We really went through that as a family. It kept the cancer controlled for a while, but eventually it came back in a very aggressive form and there was nothing else we could do. And he passed away at home with hospice. And I would say that was the first really major tragedy of my life. I had lived a very privileged and lucky existence up until that point. It really made me recognize my own mortality. It was an experience that was very impactful, and it was kind of a wake-up call. And I think most people go through this wake-up, that period in life, you sort of come to the realization that you're not gonna live forever and you need to make the time that you have count. But my dad dying at the age of 53 really was my wake-up call to that. You know, it made me realize I might have a lot less time than I'm thinking I do. And what if I get a big diagnosis in my early 50s? Like, I'm halfway there already. So it started me on this journey of really questioning everything in my life, examining everything, and asking some hard questions. Are these things in my life what I really want to be doing? Are these really making me happy? Am I really fulfilled living this life of the quote-unquote American dream? And unfortunately, I came to realize that those things were not gonna make me happy, were not gonna fulfill me in the long term. So this was a really difficult realization to process. And again, this didn't happen in a short period of time. This was something that I dealt with over the course of several years. But one of the things, unfortunately, that did not survive that period was my marriage. And I went through a divorce. Anyone who's been through it, you know, it's awful. It just sucks. And even though it was very amicable, it still was a heartbreaking situation to go through. When my former husband and I split up, I needed to regroup. I moved out of the home that we had bought, and I moved into this really small one-bedroom apartment. You know, I just needed a place to go and kind of figure out what I was gonna do. I also didn't take a lot of stuff with me because I wasn't gonna have a lot of room in this new place. I was kind of starting fresh and I didn't really know what that meant yet, so I didn't take a lot of stuff. I can remember sitting in that small one bedroom, I think it was maybe like 500 square feet, and I had just kind of the basic things around me. And I remember thinking that most people looking in from the outside would look at me and say, wow, Carrie really took a big step backwards. You know, she was living this great life in this big suburban home, and, you know, she was on her way to having a family and all this, and now she's living in this little apartment that's not that great, without a lot of stuff. Kind of by society's standards, I realized I had taken a big step backwards. But the weird thing about that period of time in my life, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. And even though I had gone through these really big losses, and I was obviously sad about those and processing those still, I felt good about my space and about my stuff. Like, that was one thing that was not weighing on me anymore. And it was this realization that, you know, living in a house that, you know, was really kind of a struggle to afford to live there, that had been a weight. And having that big house full of stuff, that had been a weight as well. Those were all things that I had to manage and I had to think about and afford. And by taking myself out of that situation and now paring way back in terms of my material goods, it gave me this sense of peace. I felt really calm about that part of my life. And I came to the realization that that was exactly what I needed then. I needed time to, I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, but I needed time then to process those big losses of my dad and of my marriage ending. And that little apartment, that even though that was small, that actually gave me the space that I needed, because I needed emotional and mental space to kind of process what I had gone through and the changes that I had made. And I can't believe I'm crying here out of my apartment talking to the camera. This obviously was like a major turning point in my life. So it's still, when I kind of put myself back there, it's emotional to think about. My point is, moving to that small place, paring my belongings way down, it was just what I needed at a really difficult period in my life. I was aware of it at the time. Like, I recognized that that was one thing that was really helping me get through it. And even though I had always been an organized person, like even as a kid, and I had always been interested in organizing, at that time, it really kind of clicked for me that, like, oh, there's something to this. There is something to this lifestyle of less stuff that is really valuable. And so I started looking into it. I started researching it. I started reading books about it. And I found one book that was very impactful for me at the time. It's called The Simple Living Guide. The book was written in the 90s. It's probably some of the information now is a little dated. I haven't read it in quite a while. I'll link to it down below. And it really covered a broad range of topics, and it talked about simple living, which is kind of what the minimalist movement of today was called back then. It really touched on not just the material goods in your life, but all aspects of your life, like how you spend your time. It really opened my eyes to the idea that there is value in simplifying not just your stuff, but all aspects of your life. And I really started doing that. There was one point in the book that has always stuck with me because it was such an impactful idea, and the author talked about friendship, and she said, realistically, how many friends do you really have time for in your life? Her point was that friendship is something that takes effort. It takes time to maintain friendships, to be a good friend. I mean, this book was written before social media even, but for most of us, we only have so much time in our life to devote to a certain number of friends. She speculated, maybe the average person really has time for like a handful of close friends, people that you really spend time with, that you talk with regularly, that you share life experiences with. And so she was talking about thinking in terms of even our friendships, thinking about simplifying those. And again, that sounds kind of harsh, but I thought, she's right. I have a finite amount of time in my life to devote to other people and to relationships. I think this gets at the main crux of what minimalism is about, or what simple living is about, and that is about being intentional. The point of minimalism is not just to get rid of everything that you own, or to pare down to a certain number of items, or to live, in a house that doesn't have any decoration. Okay, that's not really the heart of minimalism. What it's really about is being intentional about the things that you fill your life with. So making intentional decisions about the stuff that you have in your home, making intentional decisions about the relationships that you have in your life, making intentional decisions about the activities that you fill your days with. I know for me, part of this process was examining my job and the career path that I was on. And even though I had a really good job, I realized that it wasn't really fulfilling me, that I wanted to do more creative work, and I wanted to have more control over my own schedule. And so thinking about that, making an intentional decision about my work was also part of this process of simplifying. And I think it's important to note here that simple living or minimalism, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. Okay, these were not easy decisions that I made. They were actually really hard decisions. I mean, I had gone to school for many years for psychology. To make a big shift to go back to school for interior design it kind of felt like, well, what did you spend all that time for in school already? It felt like I had wasted that time. So that was a hard decision to make, to shift career paths, but it was an intentional one. It was one that I really felt was going to get me closer to my goals. It was going to get me closer to the life that I really wanted to live. All right, so this was a lot. This was a lot to share, and I think I will post this, even though it's a bit personal and a bit more personal than the other videos that I've made so far. My hope is that this will serve as an example, and that if you are going through a difficult period in your life where you are grappling maybe with big decisions, or you are just going through a big transition in your life, paring down, simplifying your home or your belongings, that might not be at the top of your list of things to do right now, but I can tell you from personal experience that it can really be helpful. That if your home is one of the things that's overwhelming to you, if your stuff is weighing you down, paring some of that stuff down by simplifying your home and your life a little bit, you will free up some mental space that you need right now. It's an opportunity to think about, well, my life is changing. Where am I heading? What is the stuff that I need for wherever it is that I want to be going? So I feel like I'm rambling now. I'm just gonna stop this here. I hope that this maybe provided you a little bit of insights into my own personal journey towards simplifying, and maybe showed you why it might be helpful for you if you're going through a big transition. I have created an online course. It's called Too Much Stuff. and it's about decluttering your life in middle age and beyond. So it's really aimed at anyone who is going through a big life transition. Maybe you're retiring, maybe you're downsizing, maybe your kids have left home and you're sort of figuring out what your next steps are. And this course gives you not just tips about decluttering, but also discusses the emotional side of that process as well. And I actually partnered with Nicole Christina, who is a psychotherapist, and we both contributed our areas of expertise to the course. So I will link to that down below in case you are looking for a little more insights into simplifying your life at a point of transition. Let me know in the comments down below if this was helpful at all, because if not, I will stick to my decluttering tips from here on out. But yeah, I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I am going to be sharing more tips here about decluttering your life and making your home the best it can be. Talk to you soon.